Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People. In today's episode, manager tries to make life difficult for me, doesn't know as per my contract it benefits me. Manager tries to scam me into paying for her joyride all over town, I make her pay for it herself. Entitled professional, not idiotic parent at an overnight camp check-in. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Manager tries to make life difficult for me, doesn't know as per my contract it benefits me. This happened a couple of years ago. I was working on a part-time basis in a small firm owned by friends. Pay was not very good, but the atmosphere was, and I was allowed to set my own timings. So life was good overall. Then a friend whom I knew only through social media approached me for a job in her company. Even though they were offering good money, I turned down the offer as I knew I could not get the benefits I was getting in my current job. Plus the commute to the new office was very long. I would have to travel 2 HRS one way and change 3 trains just to reach office. A month later, the HR of the new firm approached me again. They offered me almost 4 times the money I was making, and I could set my own work hours. There was also extra pay for working overtime and on weekends. This was important. I joined the new company. My friend did not know the terms of the new agreement I had with HR. She used to act like I owed her big time for the opportunity one got. So one day I corrected her. I told her that I had turned down the offer she had been part of, and 1 month later I had had my own negotiations and I got much more favorable terms. So I was here because her company really needed me and not because of her. I didn't share the details of my agreement with her, but we both realized that she was making significantly lesser than me. This totally changed her attitude towards me. Now she wanted me out, and I was determined to stick through for at least a year. So she decided that she would make it very difficult for me to work so that I quit on my own. There are a lot of stories I have about how she tried every trick in the book to make me quit. I'm sharing some of them here. She was my manager and was in charge of allocating work. Malicious compliance 1. She started piling on more work on me than any other member of the team. I was happy to comply. She did not know that as part of my contract I would be paid 1.5 times the hourly rate for every hour I worked OT and 2 times the hourly rate if any work was allocated to me over weekends or holidays. Every time she tried to ruin my weekend by calling me to office unnecessarily, I happily complied. This continued till the time I left the organization and told her how much extra money she had helped me make. Malicious compliance 2. After the long commute to work, I used to be hungry, so I developed the habit of stopping at the food court to pick up a glass of fresh fruit juice and carry it with me to work. My manager thought that this way she could harass me without actually seeming to do so. So she sent a notice that bringing liquids to office was a hazard. Ironically, she used to have coffee delivered to get desk 3 times a day. Well, I pointed out that the rule applied to her as well, and if I couldn't have my juice, she couldn't have her coffee. She had to literally spend an extra unpaid hour at work every time she wanted her special coffee. Meanwhile, I was happy to leisurely sit in the food court, have my glass of fresh fruit juice with some snacks, and then begin my workday half hour later than usual. Edit -1. Whoa! This blew up, and how? I didn't expect that this post would receive so much response. These 2 were the least of the incidents of my work life with this woman. There are a lot of comments and messages about this post, and while I would love to answer all of them individually, since they more or less relate to the same subject, I'll add the clarifications here below. A common question people have posted is why my manager did not know my pay structure. I work in India, and here salary structure is kept strictly confidential. It can be grounds for firing to reveal or ask for someone's salary. Basically, the way the system works is that every new hire negotiates their salary on the basis of last drawn pay, experience, and qualifications. It is very common for 2 people working on same level to have vastly different pay structures. Overtime, usually people in management level do not get overtime. I had a 7-year gap in my career, and when I started working again, I chose to work in a different field, so even though I was drawing a high salary, I didn't belong to the management level. My manager was not aware of it. When she assigned me work, she assumed I would be working without pay. I owed her. No. No organization hires anyone on the basis of recommendation. They hire people on the basis of what they bring to the table, how they seem to fit into the organization's growth plans and culture. I was able to prove that I was worthwhile investment for the company. This goes out to all. If someone tells you that they did you a favor by recommending you, don't feel overly obligated. Yes, they did you a good turn. But you got the job on your own merit. Be professional at work and do not go out of your way to return perceived favors. Was she a friend? No, not towards the end. Initially, I knew her only through social media. As we worked together, I developed a friendly working relationship with her. When she began harassing me, the dynamics changed. Though I made sure that nothing in my attitude, behavior, or demeanor would give any indication of hostility from my end. Negotiations. How was I able to get such a beneficial pay structure? I was working part-time before. The first offer I had was double my salary, but it actually worked out to the same salary structure since I would have to work full-time. I took a calculator to my meeting with the HR and showed them how with my increased travel cost and time spent on commute I would be more out of pocket taking their job. This is how I was offered OT, flexible timings, and a high base salary. Edit 2. Your friend does not seem very friendly. She was friendly so long as she thought she was doing me a favor. When she realized she didn't and I didn't know her, her attitude changed. Let's be really. She isn't your friend. She's a professional acquaintance. Got to love it when the manager's petty bullshit ends up helping you at the end, and no matter how much they harass you, you just grin at her and say thanks. That always pisses them off even more. Kill them with kindness. Quicker and easier to buy a sword and name it kindness. What was her reaction when you told her about all that extra money she had helped you earn with all the overtime, weekends, and holidays? She had to smile and wish me well, but if you have ever seen the smile of rigor mortis, you would know what her face looked like. She's not your friend, pal. She's not your pal, buddy. I don't get why friends can't be happy for friends. It sounds like she's very unhappy about everything, and that makes me very satisfied. Friend? What friend? That's not how friends should act, SMH. Although you rejected the first offer, the friend still did help you get the job because they came back with a better offer. Not saying her actions were excusable, but just saying that she did help you land the job. Manager tries to scam me into paying for her joyride all over town. I make her pay for it herself. I had a very long commute to work, and some days when I was working late, I would take an Uber home, rather than go through the pain of changing several trains. It was expensive, but comfortable. To keep a track of how much I was spending on Uber, I had a separate bank account and I would use only that account to pay Uber. In those days my manager and I were still on good terms. She got to know during one conversation that I made only online payments to Uber and rarely carried cash on me. So she decided to take advantage of this and one day pretended that she had lost her phone and needed to book a cab for her father, and so could I book it for her. I obliged. Not telling her that I had opted for payment in cash, rather than online payment while confirming the booking. And it turned out to be a good thing that I made that switch. She kept the cab for 6 hours and proceeded to roam all over the city. Next day she asked me why I had not informed her that payment was in cash. I showed her the map of the route she had traveled and the time the cab stayed with her. No. You are really not as smart as you think. I gotta know how many hundreds of dollars the bill was. Seriously, how much was it, OP? OP is in India, so I doubt the bill was more than $50. It's funny that she thought you wouldn't realize an easily $600 cab ride. OMG, don't stop at the middle of the story. Tell us her reaction and how much the bill was. The bill was quite substantial. When I reached office, she was complaining to coworkers how she was short of cash, and so she had asked me to book a ride for her, and because of me she had to go to the ATM to pay the cabbie. I just asked her very sweetly why she didn't find time to withdraw money all through the day when she had the cab and was roaming all over the city. And if she had not used the cab for full day, then the cabbie was cheating and he had not switched off the ride after dropping her. I was ready to complain to Uber and get the full amount refunded. She couldn't deny that the cabbie was not cheating. What a terrible person. She assumed sign it was autopay that you just wouldn't notice hundreds of dollars. Not to mention, what person in this day and age would someone lose their phone and not be searching like mad looking for it? I've misplaced my phone once or twice, sure, but I never leave the house without it unless it's on its charger. Liar, and obviously a cheap scammer. I drive for Uber myself and you have to pay through the app because cash rides are not allowed. Some people still do it, but it can be more dangerous, or worse, people might not pay you. Thankfully you had a cab service that allowed cash payment. What a nasty piece of work she is. Well done on turning it around. LMAO would have loved to have seen the look on her face when they asked for the money she owed. She actually thought she could trick you to pay for her cab ride for 6 hours. What did she say when you showed her the route? And that's why she started to be mean to you. Because you dared not to pay for her joyride. Precisely. The entire time I worked in that organization, it was like a cat and mouse game. She would try some new trick to harass me and I would try to outwit her. The latter half of that sounds less like OP's problem every time I reread it. Entitled professional, not idiotic parent at an overnight camp check-in. I went to this overnight camp once that had carving as an activity, and the people who didn't bring a knife could buy/borrow one during check-in. There is a strict rule of not unsheathing knives until you have either had a lesson on carving that week or have a carving certificate from a previous week. No matter who you are, staff obviously had lessons during training, so they could. Apparently, some kid from one of the camps about 7 years ago was borrowing a knife during check-in. His dad, who we'll call Bob, wanted to see if the borrowable knives were good, as he was going to an adult camp of theirs the next week and wanted to know if he needed to buy one somewhere else beforehand. So, he asked if he could test it out on a stick. The counselor, Tim, said no, and told him the rule. Bob kept insisting that because he was an adult and had been carving things for years, he should somehow be exempt from this rule because he was a professional, not an idiot. Tim said no. After a lot of back and forth, Bob showing pictures of things he'd carved as proof, and I would never be stupid enough to get myself hurt while simply unsheathing a knife, he was permitted to unsheath the knife to look, but not use it. And this idiot. Mr. would never be stupid enough to get himself hurt while simply unsheathing a knife, put the hand on the sheath, but in exactly the wrong position. And pulled the knife out. And he cut himself. It wasn't a bad cut, but the point still stands. Bob said sorry, and Tim said, "Oh, don't worry, the other 7-year-olds do this all the time when told they can't use knives like the older camps." What are you going to do, shoot me? Man who was shot. What could possibly go wrong? It seemed like a good idea at the time. Me, regularly while I was growing up. Poor mum. My sister and I were cutting up pumpkin one day, and as I was chopping, I looked over my shoulder to tell her to be careful, because the pumpkin is very hard to cut up, and she might accidentally cut herself. As I did this, I accidentally cut the tip of my finger off. I don't take my eyes off the knife anymore. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.